And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I have never been more excited to be on Facebook today. Facebook giving me a race for the adrenaline. But we are back. We are up and running. And I am thrilled to be live with screenwriter and novelist Aaron Philip Clarke, here to tell us about his brand new red hot new book, Under Color of Law. Aaron, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
Thank you for having me. Where do I start? So this is a police procedural. I think that's probably the most general way to kind of categorize it. But I do look at it as a noir tale. But it centers on Trevor Finnegan, who is a rookie detective in the LAPD. And he is tasked to investigate the murder of a young Black LAPD Academy recruit. And so as he does that, he finds himself in all different types of situations as he kind of navigates the underbelly of Los Angeles. And there's a lot of intersection there in terms of the police department, politics, and what's going on during the time period, which is 2014, a few months after the murder of Eric Gardner by the NYPD.
And I'm muted. I think this Facebook thing has thrown me for a loop. Thank you for that very succinct introduction. And I can't wait to get into so many aspects of this. But first, I just want to welcome everybody. Welcome if you are watching on Facebook. I bet you're happy Facebook is back. And welcome if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on my channels, if you're watching on Murder by the Book channels, wherever you are watching from, welcome. If you've been here before, you know the drill. And if you're new, here's the drill. Every Monday for #Mystery Monday, I give you my two featured authors and you get to ask them anything. This is your chance to ask this screenwriter, this novelist, Aaron Philip Clarke, about his latest Under Color of Law. Ask him about his writing process. Ask him about his rave reviews. Anything that is rolling around your mind, get it going in the comments and I will get it right over to him and he will answer your question. This is your time. So let's get right into it. So Aaron, this book is already racking up extremely strong praise, earning extremely strong praise. Bestselling author Jason Pinter, who's been on the show twice, calls it riveting. Starred review from Library Journal. I could go on and on. So tell us about the process of writing this book. First of all, I love police procedurals, so I am always down for a police procedural. But tell us about the process of writing this book. You say in your bio that this is drawn on your experience of Los Angeles, your experience with the LAPD. What is that experience? Give us the skinny.
So the book really kind of culminated from my time in the LAPD Academy in 2014. And so I was in the academy and essentially I suffered an injury that forced me to separate from the academy. I went home, I nursed my wounds, and I had a lot of time to think about a lot of the things that I saw while in the academy, positive and negative. And as time progressed, I said to myself, you know what, I really need to write about this from my perspective. I hadn't read police procedurals that really centered on young Black men that had the actual experience. And I said, and I talked to some other authors and they were like, yeah, when are you going to write that novel? Because I had been talking about it for a while. And so, ultimately I sat down and I said, this is the time to really start putting this down on paper. And so that's kind of how it came about. But the idea really was from my time in the academy. And I thought to myself, if when I was in the academy, if something happened to me or my peers, how would that look like? I mean, there hadn't been a murder of a recruit, I believe, since the 70s. And so it's a very rare thing. Now, recruits get in trouble all the time, but, speeding tickets and all types of stuff. But, there hadn't actually been a death. And so I thought, this would be an interesting premise to explore.
It is a very interesting premise to explore. And as we have been, over the past year, certainly year and a half of long overdue cultural awakening, and as John Bircher so brilliantly, I thought, and incisively said about this, a issue that is both timely and timeless, when I hosted him, which I thought was a really perfect, poignant way of describing it. As we've had this cultural awakening, this cultural reckoning, it must be a very interesting and very challenging time to be a Black police officer. My friend Alicia's dad is a Black police officer in Florida, and I often wonder what that's like for him right now as we're having this, cultural tension. And so I thought this was a both timely and timeless time to release this book, but clearly you didn't just start writing it last month. So you have had this rolling around in your head since 2014. Have you been working on it the whole 7 years, or what's that look like, the process?
Well, I would say that it was kind of marinating over that time. So
yes,
in terms of writing it, it took me about 2 years to write it. And so during that time period when I was really tightening up the book, that's when George Floyd occurred. And so and that incident happened. And so really essentially that murder changed some of the aspects of the book. That was kind of it was headed in not a really drastically different direction, but I felt like, okay, and obviously things like that have occurred before, but I think what was shocking was the fact that it was captured on camera, and all of its brutality, right? So we've had many incidents captured on camera, but this was different in terms of the cultural shift. Yes. And so that's when I thought, okay, I need to kind of build some elements of that into the novel. And so that kind of helped shape it as I kind of went forward.
It's very interesting because I don't know if you've been in LA since the Rodney King meetings. Yeah. I mean, I remember that being the first, I think that was really the first time I remember seeing an act of police brutality against a person of color captured on film, because we haven't always had video cameras or people, carrying them. And I remember being so, shocked. And then here it is all these years later, with George Floyd, shocked again. And somehow this was the catapult that for this long overdue conversation. So this is really fascinating. And I totally, as a writer, relate to friends, interestedly and kindly asking, how's that novel going? But the pressure doesn't always feel so super supportive.
And I think too, because of the topic, I think that people wanted to kind of hear what I had to say about it, knowing that my experience, knowing my background and my experience.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I love. I love when someone has that extra level of insight, of firsthand information, because that what they're describing, even though it's within the covers of a fictional book, is real, is ripped, from the as Library Journal Starred Review said, you're ripped from the headlines police procedural. But it's also your experience. You can speak to that in a way with a depth and a complexity and a realness that someone else who hasn't had that experience could only imagine and not really capture as well. So that's what I especially appreciate, that extra level of reliability. And let's talk about some of your other amazing reviews. Kirk has said, this is a harrowing evidence for Spike Lee's famous claim that everything that happens in America is about race. Is that the kind of praise that you were looking for? Did that resonate? Were you like, yes, I feel seen? Or were you like, what was that like for you to receive as a review?
Well, how can I put it? So there's elements of that are true, right?
Yeah.
So when we think about, this long kind of sordid history of America, a lot of things do stem back to race. While that could be seen as an umbrella, there are many other topics that the novel addresses. And so we're talking about masculine identity. We're talking about father and son relationships.
Yes.
We're talking about this idea of the corruption within institutions and how institutions can almost begin with best intentions and over time can kind of wither on the vine in terms of that element of morality. And then, it is at the end of the day, it really is a character study of Trevor Finnegan as he kind of navigates this world and still tries to, I would say, keep his soul.
Which is the soul of an artist, the soul of a painter, the soul of a creative who wants to express himself visually on very broad, large canvases known as the side of buildings. And I really loved that he was sort of this, artist at heart and cop by day, but had this secret yearning, because how many of us have those little secret things that we tuck away? We're an HR professional by day, but we have these secret yearnings, and we have these things that we don't feel qualified or emboldened or empowered or safe to express, or we think, oh, that's not realistic, or my parents wouldn't approve, like Finn, he thought his dad wouldn't approve. And that was one of the many things that I loved about this book was seeing the relationship between Finn and his dad, also a police officer, a retired police officer, because it captures so much. Obviously, I don't know anything about father-son relationships. I haven't lived that experience, but seeing a parent age and being worried about his ability to care for himself is something, we can all relate to, or and wanting to say something, but not, there's still that age divide or that respect divide or whatever. It was so painful and so true. My heart would wince when he would, go to his dad and try to say, like, oh, Dad, you've got to change your shirt. You got to pick up the place. It's like, I've had that experience with a grandparent or whatever. And I loved also how, Finn always, I think, felt like, reading Finn's perspective, you think the dad's never going to approve of him being an artist, but then that comes up and the dad's like, why do you think I wouldn't approve? And it's so true, because we all have these ideas about what other people think of us, about what parents want us to be, about what, and we had only seen that from Finn's perspective. But then when we saw that comment from the dad, it was like, maybe Finn's not a totally reliable narrator. Maybe his own self-consciousness has limited him in this way. So I thought that was really poignant too. Or Tori. So you addressed interracial relationships. He's having a relationship with his white, I don't want to say a girlfriend, because he's not willing to commit, his dating partner. I don't know what the word is, what the kids are calling it these days. He's seeing a woman he's hanging out with, he's spending time, he's Netflix and chilling, whatever it is, with Tori. And there was one really poignant moment, I thought, where he's thinking that his dad would say, again, oh, well, you don't date a white woman, because if she goes missing, they're going to look at you, and it doesn't matter if you're a detective. Tell us about that moment. Because they always look at the husband, but there's an extra level of culpability if he's a Black husband.
Right. And I mean, I think we saw that with the O.J. Simpson trial. But there's kind of layers there in terms of when you're a Black male and you're moving through this society, there are dangers that kind of exist in the back of your mind where you say, okay, I better do this, I better do that, in order to stay safe. Prime example would be, personally, every time I go get gas, I make sure I get a receipt. Just because if anyone ever says, hey, this guy matched the description or was here or was there, I can say, actually, no, I was getting gas. And so I always ask for a receipt no matter really where I go. And I actually, while some people may avoid cameras, I actually purposely make sure I'm seeing. So, these are things that are just kind of interwoven into daily life. And, for Finn, he still has this kind of naivete to him, where even though he is this detective, he still sees himself as, this artist, and he has the spirit of this artist, and he kind of thinks he can still kind of move through the world a little bit, and just kind of exist, and so it's his father who gives him these reality checks that says, remember who you are, remember the world you're living in. And so, he thinks that to an extent, he believes he's kind of protected because he has that badge. So he thinks that he is immune to an extent from harassment. And, the authority, the police authority that he grew up kind of fearing that he saw from his father, he later welcomes it because he realizes, oh, well, this actually is currency in this world. Having this badge, it brings a certain currency.
I like to use the word currency. I think that's very powerful, and very true. And yeah, that was also very interesting. And then another interesting element, of course, the dad himself is mixed race, so he's battling with a toxic father relationship himself, which is another thing that I think all of us can relate to, is navigating a parent relationship, watching them navigate a grandparent relationship. No matter what your relationship with your parents are, even if it's very good, and the not everyone has smooth sailing in all the generations. And I thought I mean, there's so much here that you wove in, I thought, very seamlessly and very thoughtfully, elegantly, because I think as a writer, like, I want to sit down and I'm like, okay, I want to talk about big things. I want to talk about, this, but if no one wants to be preached to, and if you try to think about all of the big things that you're weaving in, it's overwhelming. And yet when I tease out all of the meat that you've packed into this very, this book, there's a lot here. We've got family, we've got father, son, we've got, identity, creativity, destiny, self-determination. I mean, there's so much. So what's Finn going to get up to next? Where have you left yourself to go?
Well, yeah, I mean, for readers who have finished it, it is a little bit, there's elements that are, kind of a cliffhanger there. That will be wrapped up nicely in the next novel. But Finn is going to face probably one of the biggest cases of, I would say, of his life, because at the end of, not, no spoiler alert, but, it's kind of, by the time Under Color of Law ends, it's kind of difficult for Finn to return to the police department. And so he has to become something different. And so to do that, he has to team up with a legal friend, an attorney, who helps him facilitate this almost new persona, right? So we're kind of tracking back to this idea of identity, that we are many things within a lifetime. And so, Finn changes, and he has to kind of solve this case. And this case is very much connected to his redemption. If he is successful, not to say he won't lose things along the way, but in terms of his personal redemption, if he could be successful, he kind of will be able to live in this world without the guilt that he's harbored for so long.
Another interesting relationship in the book is his relationship with his childhood friend, Sarada. Sarada. Oh, thank you for correcting me. Sarada. So she is a beautiful Southeast Asian Indian woman, and he has always had a soft spot for her. And so he's wrestling between what he has always wanted but never been quite brave enough to go for, and then Tori, who's very ready and open for a relationship, and dealing with her own issues of aging and being single and yearning to connect with someone deeply. Finn, of course, wrestling with his own issues of being closed off. Tell us about the relationship with these two women in Finn's life. What was your creative process in delving into these two different relationships he has?
Well, I wanted to explore, I first wanted to give a level of tenderness to the novel as well, right? So, we don't want to just have this kind of dark cloud. Finn's life as a police officer is very different from who he is with his father, and who he is with Tori and Sarada. And so I wanted to explore that, and this idea that, we all kind of are the star in our own movie, right? So Finn sees everyone kind of serving this purpose in his life, almost like a supporting cast. And so with Tori, she never really signed up for that, right? So we cast people, and they don't always want to be cast. And so, she realizes that she's putting herself out there so much, but it's not reciprocated. So she's not really getting anything back. And so, I wanted to make sure she was written with dignity. But at the same time, there's a longing within Tori to have this relationship. And I'm not even 100% sure that it needed to be with Finn. But, for Finn, he's serving a purpose for her, and she's serving a purpose for him, because they just don't want to be lonely. And within LA, the massive city, you can find incredible opportunities to be lonely. And I think, that's what they're fighting against. It's this idea of, I don't want to be in my apartment by myself, or, it's a line in the book where, Finn says that, an evening with a willing stranger is far better than, you're willing to risk that morning of awkwardness because, you have somebody there. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of, I think that's kind of a millennial thing to an extent too, because, Finn meets her on a dating app. So, it's this idea that.
Wait, I thought they met in a bar.
They did, but that it was actually the dating app, and then they had the date in the bar. So
okay, I missed the app part. I was picturing it as a smoky night in a bar. I don't know why.
It was a smoky night in a bar, but it all started, because of
because of that swipe, because the swipe right or left or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's that idea that all it takes is you get on your phone and you can kind of swipe, and next thing you know, here's someone you've matched with, and you can go have this adventure, this experience. And so, it's like intimacy is in the palm of your hand. And so it's a very, it's kind of a brave new world, but it's also a very dangerous thing in terms of the emotional baggage that can bring, because if it goes well, that's great, but it also can go really terrible. So, or you now are in someone's life, because you swiped, and they're still very much strangers, which is Tori and Finn's relationship.
Yes. Yeah. That's a world I didn't know, because I'm too old for that. I got married before that really took off. So that it's voyeuristically delicious for me to peer into that world, and see what's going on. Yeah. Because right after, that moment in your book, the moment after is this very painful one where Tori asks him to go to a wedding with her, and he doesn't want to have that level of accountability and interdependence, and he doesn't want to, and so he blows her off, and it just was it was so painful to read, because you could see her yearning for that. So Erin, did you get any angry texts from any ladies in your life who said, "Am I Tori? Am I Sarada?" Did you have to write back, "New phone, who this?"
No. I mean, luckily, I mean, really, these characters are amalgamations of people that I know, but also experience that some friends of mine have had. So, I kind of, when I cook them, it's a whole lot of ingredients, right? So
interesting. Okay, I get it. Erin, what do you think the difference is? I've always been interested. I'm asking for a friend, and the friend is me. I've always been interested in screenwriting, and what would you say the main difference is, besides the need to be extraordinarily concise when you're writing a screenplay, because you have so many less pages, so many less scenes, and also you have a visual mode, medium, so you don't have to say, "Oh, there's a red car," and Finn notices the red car or whatever, because the audience can just see there is in fact a red car. What's the other? Are there any other big differences, or has your career as a screenwriter honed your skills, or did you have to relearn? Walk us through that.
Well, yeah, it's wearing two different hats, but in terms of my writing style, I think what I take from screenwriting is that ability to be concise. I think as just in terms of my writing philosophy is that, James Baldwin said, write a sentence as clean as a bone, right? So it's and I think too, because I early on I studied poetry as well in grad school. You're chasing, you're kind of chasing the poetics of something. You're trying to describe something. You're trying to capture something as succinctly as you can, but with beauty, right? So that screenwriting in a way can do that. I've read screenplays and I've read lines within screenplays where I've been like, "Oh wow, that's poetry," and they were able to put that, even though a screenplay is just a blueprint for a film, but it still brings a level of in terms of tone, it and sets the mood for someone who could potentially read that and say, "Okay, now I can see that, I can visualize that, I can bring that to the screen." And so, even when you're writing prose, you still want people to see it, right? You want them to be able to almost have that movie going in their head. So I think they're very similar mediums in that way, and you can learn a lot from screenwriting. As a fiction writer, when you're crafting prose, and so and then like I said, I think it's almost a hidden desire for many fiction authors to, where we somewhere along the lines we thought we were going to be poets, so it's like, it's all about chasing that perfect sentence, that kind of perfect line that could just almost exist on its own if it, or was part of a stanza.
I keep muting myself. I know nothing about poetry, so that is fascinating. That's a whole different perspective. Melissa is saying hello from Australia. She says, hi, Sarah and Aaron. Hi, Melissa.
Hello.
Welcome. I just want to let you know Facebook is back up. I have been sending everyone to YouTube all day. And she always, her Facebook profile picture is the cutest little dog. So she's saying, I hope you recognize me without my doggy. Of course we recognize you. So good to have you here. Mystery and Thriller Maven member. Always a delight to have you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know if you have any questions for Aaron. We have just a few minutes left, so let us know if anyone else has any other questions. Welcome Alan, welcome Steve, welcome Karen, welcome Sue. Great to see everybody here. I'm keeping my eyes on all the screens here because we're broadcasting 6 different places. I don't want to miss anybody's anything. So Aaron, what was your greatest challenge for writing this book?
Well, I would say I had to return, I think, emotionally and mentally to my recruit days. And so that meant kind of going back through my training materials and putting myself back in that mindset. And it's difficult. I mean, given the span of time to kind of return to my headspace. And, part of that was wanting to make sure that the novel had a level of authenticity that it really demanded. And I wanted to be true to law enforcement, especially Black police officers, which I think to an extent are not seen within society in the same way as other police officers. And I think we even saw that, very much with what occurred on January 6th at the Capitol, and the way that the sort of things that were said to those Black police officers. And it's almost as if they were stripped of the authority that they had worked so hard to gain, and that they might as well not even had a badge, the way that they were treated. And so we aren't, when it comes to Black police, they're just not seen the same. There's almost a different standard in terms, especially when it comes to their behavior, as opposed to other police officers. And so I really wanted to capture that. In some ways it's an ode to Black police officers. And it's saying, I recognize that the struggles are not just on the street. The struggles are within the department. The struggles are within the community. Black police officers can be seen as other, not quite of the community, not quite being a part of the community because they represent law enforcement. And so it's a great struggle to be able to walk that line and still have your community say, I understand you, and I understand that you're out here trying to help and make things better. And you don't necessarily represent these police officers over here who are not part of the community, who, wouldn't set foot in it unless they were working. And there's a different sort of relationship there. And so that was important. And I think that was a challenge, to write them with that kind of level of respect and that they deserve, and also show some of the flaws, their inherent flaws that are within that when it comes to being a police officer, just period. Not necessarily you as an individual, but you represent this department, and as if the department is seen a certain way, unfortunately, you are culpable in that.
At first, I thought you meant othered by the department, but you mean othered by the community. Yeah, because that's almost a dual othering, because then you're othered within your community because you have chosen to be a police officer, and then you sometimes might be othered by the police community for being Black.
Right.
I actually have been researching for my next book about the first Black police officer in New York, and it
Mm,
is a fascinating and also very painful, you know, thing to learn, to see what those extremely brave guys had to go through, and the ways that they were hazed and othered within the police
yeah,
department, and the ways that they were treated and sort of tried to be forced out with, back to back shifts and no breaks for 6 days, and only 3 hours off between shifts or something, completely inhumane that just no one could tolerate, and yet somehow they did. It's extraordinary. Why did you want to be a police officer?
well, multiple reasons, but I have law enforcement officers within my family,
Mm-hmm.
and originally similar to Finn, I was a visual artist. I thought I was going to paint and study fine art,
Mm.
and I did that. I mean, I studied art early on, and then that turned into filmmaking, which ultimately turned into writing and screenwriting.
Mm.
But as time progressed, it's what you said kind of early on in the show, that we all have these kind of hidden desires, right? We have these
Yeah.
questions. And so,
Mm.
I always ask myself, oh, what would it be like? How would I do? What could what impact could I have within my community if I went this other route? And then I
Mm.
was young enough to try it. I was single and I was young, and I hadn't had my son or anything like that. So I was in a situation where I could make that decision. And so, I
Mm.
stopped. At the time I was a college professor. And so I stopped, pursuing, higher ed, and I made a completely different career change.
Mhm.
So while it was very difficult, to make that shift, it was probably one of the best things that I ever did in my life, because you learn a lot about yourself, and you are put in
Mm.
situations where you have to ask yourself, okay, what do I do here? Um,
Mm.
and sometimes what is legal is not always right.
Yes, yes, which is something that Finn has to wrestle with. Um, and I can't imagine being in that situation and having to make that choice, over and over and over again. Um, Fascinating stuff. Fascinating stuff. Well, I want to thank you, sir, for coming on the show today, for telling us all about the backstory of Finn, and your brand new red hot book, Under Color of Law, currently #1 on Amazon, for conspiracy thrillers, which is, of course, the best kind of thriller. So, congratulations on all
Thank
of the
you.
incredible praise that you are earning, all of the incredible reviews that you are getting, the standing that your book has earned. Thank you for coming in and telling us all about it, and thank you to all of you for joining us. Thank you for Facebook for waking up and getting it together. And I will see you at 8 p.m. Eastern, with Lisa Unger. Have a great night, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.